Welcome to by Valle by Daniela de Valle. I recently revamped and upcycled an already upcycled piece in my house. This is what it turned out like. I was pretty satisfied. First, I took the old piece that I had done, took the old hardware which I decided I wanted to change. Then I gave it a good clean. Then I had to make sure that the drawers were flush because the design needed it to be nice and flush. I had to adjust some things. Once they were adjusted and I was satisfied, I was able to put the drawer back on to make sure that it was nice and flush, and when I was happy, I was able to continue. Once I did that, I took it outside and gave it a good sand because it did have a little bit of varnish and things like that. Got rid of all that, gave it a good clean, and then I put on wood filler. The wood filler was to fill the holes because I decided to change the hardware. Whilst I love the old hardware, the new design I had a nicer piece for it. Here I used tile adhesive. Now the tile adhesive is so that you get a raised surface. Once you put your stencil down, make sure that you measure the center of that stencil so you have a continued centerpiece across your stencils. It's important that your stencils match. They don't have to be perfect, but you want them to be fairly even. Once you're satisfied, you can go ahead and use the tile adhesive, which gives it a really nice raised surface. I absolutely love this technique. It's one of those things that I found, and I have done it on everything. I have chopped up my bed and used this to give it a new look, revamped that as well. It's amazing. I love this technique. Once you're satisfied with you lift the stencil, make sure you clean any extra parts on the stencil that need to be cleaned. Once you're satisfied with the look, you can have a good look around. I wrapped the sides and just put one stencil on the side. Didn't want to do too much. I thought that was enough. Then I took the piece outside to give it a good sand. The adhesive does come out uneven, so you just got to even it out. You want it to be raised and you want it to look a little bit rough, but you don't want it to be like looking like it's just wrong. Once you give it a good sand and you're satisfied, you're done. I forgot to mention earlier, and tape, that I had painted the top of my little table, and underneath and inside the drawer with a watered down black paint. The black paint acts like a whitewash but with black, so you just keep adding it until you're satisfied with the amount of color you've got on there. And once you're happy, you have this really beautiful looking like a wash top that looks like it's old and it's been used forever. Once I cleaned the piece, took all the dust off, took it inside, gave it a good clean, I was able to then go ahead and give it a coat of varnish. I used polyurethane water base. I find I like the finish it gives me. So I made sure that I sealed all the stencils. That is really important. You need to seal your stencils to make sure that when you're painting your layers and layers of paint, if you're watering them down and things, you're not going to affect the tile adhesive. Also varnished the top, and until I was satisfied. Once I was happy with the varnish that I had, I was able to continue. I did the inside of the drawers. I did the whole dresser. I did one coat of varnish. Once I had done the one coat of varnish, I was able to go ahead and give it a paint. So I painted the dresser, the table, with antique white. I love the look of antique white paint. It's just really nice, and you can use shades of paints to give it different looks. Antique look, a green sea look. You can add so much to it. And I did about 3 layers of washed down the antique white paint. I like to do many layers and use little paint. Once I was satisfied, I did give it one final varnish to seal in the antique white before I started this particular technique. What I use is some black and some brown paint, and it will use paint instead of wax. I like this, doing it this way. So you put the paint on and then you rub off any excess, and you just keep doing it until you're satisfied. Sometimes you might want to rub it all off, but because you've added the varnish, it doesn't affect the paint. So make sure that you do varnish the piece before you start this process. Otherwise you start taking out the paint and it doesn't look right. Once you're happy you've done the antique look, it looks quite nice, I think, then your piece is done. And voila, like magic, you've just made a brand new piece of furniture for your house. I loved this technique. I love my piece of furniture, and I hope you enjoyed it as much as I do. All right, well, thank you for joining me.